and we're going to Winnipeg now. Sean Reynolds joins us from Sportsnet Winnipeg. Hey, Rennie. Listen, I put it out to Jets fans yesterday. How we feeling? They're like, we're not ready. We're not ready to talk about it. Yeah. Is that what you're sensing from Jets fans?
Yeah, I think everyone was really expecting, at least a second round. It's a tough go to get out of the Central, and I think a lot of Jets fans knew that even if they did get past Colorado, they'd be facing the winner of Dallas, Vegas. Vegas is kryptonite in the playoffs to the Winnipeg Jets, and Dallas, we know, is a really, really complete team. But I think everyone was thinking there was a lot of reason to be excited this year, and that a second round was in the cards, so to speak. So yeah, I think this was a real gut punch for Jets fans. There's a lot of belief. This is a team similar to what we've seen from the Toronto Maple Leafs. The playoffs, they don't get the results they want, and a lot of times they come out of the playoffs not feeling that they've showed the best that they can show. I think people thought this year was going to be different. It clearly wasn't. It was almost the prototypical case of that happening to the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, just skipping ahead, there's a lot in between here, but is Scott Arniel a slam dunk next head coach, or do they need to have a discussion about this?
Well, they need to have the discussion, but I also think that it's, as close as you can get to a slam dunk. There was such an interesting story that came the last time the Jets were looking for a head coach, and John Tortorella had a meeting that I chatted with John Tortorella about with Kevin Cheveldayoff, in which Kevin Cheveldayoff went to his house and stayed for like 6 hours, and they hadn't known each other before the meeting and came out of that, and John Tortorella said, I come out of that meeting and I think I'm going to have a lifelong relationship in hockey with Kevin Cheveldayoff. This is something that you can't pass up as an organization. You've got your team, you've got all these issues, you're trying to solve them with a head coach, and this is an opportunity to have all the best minds in hockey, all these different head coaches come and tell you, hey, this is what I think's wrong with your team. This is how we exploit your team when we play against them. These are all the things that I know about them and all the things I think I could do to fix your team. Now, whether or not you hire that guy, you basically get free consultation from some of the greatest minds in the game. So the Jets have to go down that road. That said, I do believe Scott Arniel was here with the expectation that when Rick Bowness moved on, they would be moving on to him. He's got a long history with the organization, with the city. We know that. So I do believe there's an expectation within his world that they're going in that direction. I think the Jets were thinking the same thing. So I think it's fairly close to a slam dunk, but you have to do your due diligence. And who knows what can happen when that due diligence is done.
Well, I wonder, and I apologize for being the 1 million and second person asking you what you think they should do, but for my two, because I know what Winnipeg's like. It's like every other town that loves their team. But Chevy, I've known him since since I was 16. I think he was 18. I was in a training camp in Brandon with him. He's always been a leader. He's a good guy. This is my take. You want a guy like that leading your organization if you're a Jets fan and your ownership. So all the pieces are there is my point. This does not need to be a radical rebuild. Somebody actually brought up the term rebuild with the Jets. I'm like, they're good. This isn't a major changes they need,
I don't think it's a major rebuild that's needed, but I think if they're not taking a look at the personnel they have and wondering if that had to do with the result that they got, that Colorado clearly stepped up their game to another level that the Winnipeg Jets just could not follow, I think it would be folly not to look at it that way. So, I think the Jets system under Rick Bowness was designed to create a team defense. Sometimes I think having to go to a very strong team defense is code for your defense as it was constructed needed help and needed to alter the way the entire team played to kind of create a 5-man shell to kind of spell off what we're seeing on the back end of the defense, right? They're not the biggest defense in the world. I'm a big believer that going back to 2019 with the St. Louis Blues, every single year we've seen a defense core win the Stanley Cup with trees, like giants on the back end that just do not let you get close to the front of the net. The Winnipeg Jets do not have that. They potentially are losing probably the biggest tree that they have on the back end with Brendan Dillon. There's potential for them to lose 2 of their top 3 defensemen because Dylan DeMello is also an unrestricted free agent. Which means that if they lose those players, and we know going the unrestricted free agent route is not how the Jets typically build, the Jets defense core needs to get better, and there's potential for it to actually get worse here. So I do think that I think you're right, Rod. I think there's a lot of pieces in place for the Winnipeg Jets that Kevin Cheveldayoff has set up. That said, there, in my opinion, is a lot of room for this team to get better. And I do think as the roster was constructed, it got exposed a little bit in the playoffs. This isn't just these guys forgot to show up to play or they didn't have the right game plan. There's tweaks that need to be made to this roster if they want to take the next step.
Sure. Well, you've been doing this a long time. You know, no teams are satisfied. They're always trying to get better. And I keep... with Hellebuyck, you can see it. There's a tendency when your goalie's that good to just say, hey, let him do it. That's what they do. I see it in Florida. They do it with Bob from time to time. Mm-hmm. But the Panthers still went out and got Tarasenko and Okposo. They added. So, I mean, I get it. You can get better. How's Hellebuyck doing, by the way? And because that wasn't him in the playoffs, right? That was a big surprise.
He says it's him. I mean, he says, you're not going to believe this, but this is the best hockey I've played of my career. That's what he said in the postseason. We're used to Connor Hellebuyck coming out and basically saying, hey, he allowed 6 goals and got pulled from a game. And he comes out and he'll say, I liked my game. I thought my details were right. This is what Connor Hellebuyck does. It's what he's always done. I think personally, it's just a power of positive thinking response that you get from him. In the way that he doesn't want, negative thoughts to enter his mind. He talked about why he doesn't speak to the media during the playoffs, and he said he just doesn't need that kind of stuff in his mind. So he's clearly a person who wants positive thoughts in there, and he wants to lock out everything else. I see this as a tactic by him to not look at what is happening as far as his playoff numbers go. I've said this before. Every year, Rod, we go into the playoffs with the Winnipeg Jets, and everyone just automatically ticks the box and says the Jets have the advantage in goal. Yeah. It hasn't turned out to be that way. The numbers do not bear that out, and the Winnipeg Jets have not had a marked advantage in the crease in the playoffs. And so part of this, I think you're right, and no doubt about it. The Winnipeg Jets have relied on Connor Hellebuyck far more than they should have. During the regular season, they've hung him out to dry. He's kept them in a lot of things. But as far as things go with the playoffs, Connor Hellebuyck, there's a place he can take his game that he hasn't taken it to.
Couldn't agree more. Meanwhile, they're inscribing his name on the Jennings Trophy, and he might be getting the Vezina. So you're right. It's 2 different seasons. And I'll tell you what, over your shoulders, that beautiful Hockey Night in Canada jacket. Kelly Rudy might want to take him down and introduce him to Tony Robbins, because Rudes will tell you Tony Robbins changed Kelly's career. It's a true story. It's a hell of a story, man.
It's a great story.
Yeah. Speaking of, are you doing some playoff series like my boy Ryan Leslie, or are you off-season mode?
I'm actually in capture my breath mode. I'll be heading out for the 3rd and 4th round and the draft. So basically, right now I'm just kind of getting all the seeding the grass, doing all the yard work, and then I'm going to hop on a plane and disappear until July. So it's going to get busy after this.
Okay, man. Well, thanks for fitting us in. I always enjoy it, man. Enjoy the break.
You bet. Appreciate that. Always love being on, Rod.
Thank you, pal. Sean Reynolds, Sportsnet, Winnipeg.